Alright, so this video is going to show how to create hollow volume overlays for a Bitemark suspect comparison. And before we jump into it, again, disclaimer, I'm not teaching how to do a Bitemark analysis or comparison. I am simply teaching the Photoshop steps and skills that can be used when doing a Bitemark analysis and or comparison. And in this video specifically, again, that's creating hollow volume overlays of a suspect dentition when you're doing a comparison. So we're going to jump into it. So this is my Photoshop file for my suspect H cast that we've been working on with all of my suspect videos. So again, just a refresher, we've already kind of gone through the steps here. We've made our background copies, we've rotated and flipped and prepped the casts, we've made our block out. You can see I've already done solid volume overlays and I've already done trace contour overlays as those layers are sitting over here. So we are now going to do just what's called a hollow volume overlay. Remember, your trace contour is also a hollow volume, it's just made in a different manner. So just a little bit of a side note on the terminology there. But to do a hollow volume overlay, just like the solid volume overlays, there's multiple ways to do this. So this is going to be method number 1. And again, everybody's probably like, why are you doing this little thing? This is just so, again, if you're kind of quickly scrolling through the video later, you can kind of know where each method starts and stops. So this is method number 1. This is the way that has been taught in classes. This is kind of the initial way that I learned to do this. So we'll do that first. So I just zoomed in, aka Control Plus, to get my maxillary arch big enough where I can really see it, so that I can see the detail that I'm wanting to capture. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to highlight the incisal edges, or what we think are the biting surface that corresponds to the marks within the bite marks. So the way that we're going to do that first is we're going to come over here, we're going to do our magic wand tool, and again, make sure your magic wand is selected. And we're going to click on kind of the edge where we think the surface that we're wanting to capture is. So if I do that, you'll notice now I have lovely marching ants. And the first thing to notice is it didn't select a very big area. That's okay. Sometimes you don't want it to select a big area. But if you want it to be a little bit less sensitive, you can come up here and you can make your tolerance bigger. And now to select multiple teeth, you do have to hold down either Shift for a PC or Command while you're clicking on a Mac. So I'm holding my Shift button down and now I'm clicking on my central incisor. And you'll notice I got a lot more marching ants that time. That's because I bumped my tolerance up. So there is a little bit of play with this, in that you kind of have to keep adjusting your tolerance to figure out where the sweet spot is, so to speak. So let's try 15, and I'm going to hold the Shift button down again, and I'm going to click on the incisal edge. That's a little bit better, so I'm going to leave it at 15, and now I'm just going to keep holding my Shift button down, and I'm going to keep clicking on areas of the teeth that I think are the biting surface, the portion of the teeth that maybe made the mark or the bite mark. And we're going to do that all the way around for all the teeth that we think participated. So once you've done that, you can come down here and you can do the same thing for these bottom teeth. Again, I'm holding the Shift button down and I'm just clicking on the areas of the teeth that I think participated in making the marks. So incisal edges of your anterior teeth, kind of your cuspal areas of your canines and your premolars, something like that. And now I'm going to Ignore that I just did that. I'm going to control and minus and kind of back up so that you can see kind of the whole screen now. And you can see that I've got top teeth and bottom teeth selected. Good. Now what we want to do is we want to come up here and we want to do layer, layer, new layer. And we're going to name this H hollow volume. We're going to say OK. Again, notice that that is in fact the layer that's active. You want to make sure that's the layer that's active before we do this next step. Now we want to stroke these marching ants, and basically what that means is it puts a solid line outline that corresponds to where you see these kind of jagged lines right now. That's going to create the outline of the teeth. The way that we do that, obviously, come up here to Edit, Stroke, and this width right here basically changes the width of your line that we're going to make. I like to keep this at about 2 to 3 so that I've got kind of a thinner line and it's not covering up important information on my bite mark photograph. This is also where you would change the color. So if you have multiple suspects, you kind of want each suspect to have their own color so that when you start looking at all these overlays on the bite mark photograph, you can easily tell one suspect from another because they're all in different colors. We've been doing red for suspect H, so I'm actually going to leave this as red because that's the color I want for this suspect. And we're going to say OK. And now if I turn my eyeball off of my blockout and I do deselect, oh no, look, we have gray lines instead of red. Well, the reason that that is sometimes your scans of your cast are done in grayscale. And if that's the case, then Photoshop doesn't really understand that you want some color added to that. It thinks you want everything to be in grayscale. No big deal, this is an easy fix. So the way that you would fix that is we're going to come back up here and we're going to undo our layer visibility. We're going to undo deselect. We're basically going to keep backing up until we undo the stroke. So we're back to the point where we have our new layer named hollow volume. We've got our marching ants, but we have not stroked it yet. So we're going to come up here to image, mode, and you'll notice if I can stay clicked on it, that this little check mark next to grayscale is clicked. Well, again, that's basically saying the image is in grayscale. It's not going to recognize color even if you give it a color. So what we have to do is we have to come down here and we need to change it to RGB color. Say do not merge. You don't ever want to merge your layers. Always, 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 always say don't merge. So we're still where we were. We've still got our new layer named hollow volume. We still have our marching ants. So now we're going to do our stroke again. So edit, stroke. We still want red. We're going to say OK. And you can kind of already see that it's shown up there. We do now have red. So I'm going to turn the eyeball off my block out so that I can see my overlay. And I'm going to Control D to deselect it. And look, now we actually have red. So yay, that's what we wanted. So if you do edit stroke and you tell it a color and it doesn't show up with a color, it's probably because your mode is in grayscale. So again, you're just image mode, and rather than grayscale, you want to be in RGB. So again, it's fixable, nothing to panic about. That's how you fix it. So now we've got our hollow volume, and you'll notice there's still kind of just some roughness about this. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn my block out on so that I can see my teeth while I'm kind of cleaning up my hollow volume. And you want to be careful because you want to make sure that this hollow volume is the active layer. That means that's the layer we're making changes to. And we want to, first I'm going to use my eraser tool. And I'm going to maybe make my eraser just a little bit bigger because I'm going to kind of get rid of a little bit of extra stuff here. So let's say I don't think this marginal ridge here really participated, so I'm going to erase that mark right there. I don't really like that part of that mark, so I'm going to erase that. Let's say I don't like that. I'm going to erase that. And then now I'm going to maybe make this a little bit smaller. Probably even smaller than that. Whoop, that's probably too small. And I'm going to Control plus, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more because it's going to make it easier for me to clean this stuff up. I don't want all this noise kind of on this inside of this, so I'm going to just sit here and I'm going to erase all of that kind of extra information until I have kind of what looks like the appropriate outline that I want. And you would do this for each tooth. You would sit here and you would use your eraser tool to kind of clean up the excess markings that you don't think you need. And so, like, this is a good example right here. Like, let's say I accidentally, oh, shoot, I erased too much. No big deal. The way that you fix that is you come over here to your pencil tool. Again, it's in the same place as your brush tool. So you may have your brush tool activated. Just come over here and select pencil. You want to make sure your pencil is the same color as the color you're trying to use. We are in red. And so we are going to just freeform draw in that edge right there. And let's say, so I kind of erased, I kind of erased my little lingual cusp tip. So let's say we want to include that. We're going to just, again, freeform draw that on there like that. So you would do that for each tooth using your eraser tool, your pencil tool to kind of clean this up until you get your overlay the way that you want it. And that's how you do kind of the first method for creating a hollow volume overlay. Again, big things that you can run into is if your mode isn't RGB color, your strokes aren't going to show up in a color. If you do need to pencil something in, but your pencil isn't in the right color, the way that you change that is you just click over here and you, again, can drag your mouse, get your color same as the color that your stroke is. So, okay, that is method number 1 for creating a hollow volume. Again, I'm not going to sit here and clean up every little tooth mark because that would make a really long video. But now we will show you method number 2. Again, there's multiple ways to do this hollow volume overlay. It's just a matter of personal preference. So, okay, we're going to act like we don't have that yet. We're going to come back here to our blockout. And the next way that you can create a hollow volume overlay is we can actually use our magnetic lasso tool. So if I can find my mouse, perfect, here we go. Again, I'm just trying to get this where I can see everything I want to see. So our magnetic lasso tool is right here. And right now my polygonal lasso tool is selected. I don't want that. I want my magnetic lasso tool. And then the way that this works is we're going to come out here and we're going to just keep clicking to outline the area that we want to outline. So now we've got marching ants there. And you don't have to hold a shift button down with this. You just, once you've closed your magnetic lasso loop, and you do that by just kind of bringing this together, you don't have to hold shift button down. You just go to the next tooth and start clicking. So we're gonna magnetic lasso all of our teeth here. And again, I'm probably not going to do the whole thing because I'm just trying to show you a different method. But here we go. We're magnetic lasso, selecting our incisal edges. And you would do this for all of your teeth. I'm not going to do that, just again to kind of make the video a little bit shorter. So just pretend we've magnetic lassoed all the teeth. From here, the steps are pretty similar to method number 1. We're going to, sorry, don't click on that. You're going to do layer, new, layer, and I'm going to call this H hollow volume 2. And again, make sure that that's the layer that's active. You're going to come up here and go edit, stroke, and again, if you want to change those, change them. I don't want to change them because I still want it to be red because I'm still in suspect H. And I'm going to click OK. I'm going to turn my eye off of my block out, and I'm going to Control D to deselect. And now you'll notice we've got teeth outlines. There's a little bit less cleanup with this method, a little bit less erasing and drawing and that sort of thing. So for me, this is just a little bit quicker than method number 1. But again, you may not like clicking your mouse 1700 times to magnetic lasso every tooth. Nothing wrong with that. Again, this is just another tool for you to try out, see if you like it. Just another way to get to the same end result. So that's kind of a second way to create a hollow volume. So I'm going to turn my eyeball off there, and I'm going to come back to my block out. And now we're going to learn method number 3. So method number 3 is probably the most subjective way to do this. So just that's kind of a little heads up there, and you'll see why here in just a minute when I start this. So there's subjectivity to every one of these methods, but this one has a little bit more to it. So if you were trying to say, well, I didn't do anything subjective, this method may not be the right method, but again, you're cleaning up all those other methods anyway, so there's still some subjectivity to it. What we're going to do is we're going to actually just draw on the teeth, or just draw, not on the teeth, draw our outlines around the teeth. So to do that, we're going to, before we do anything, we're going to come up here, we're going to do layer, layer, new layer. I'm going to call this one H hollow volume 3 because that's my third hollow volume. All right, so again, you really want to make sure that this layer is the active layer, and I'll show you why here in just a minute. So we've got our active layer. We're going to come over here. We're just going to use our pencil tool. So again, it's connected to your brush tool, so your brush tool may be the one that's showing up. Just come over here and click your pencil tool. I want red because that's the color for the suspect. And then we are simply just going to freehand draw the outline that we want, or that we think is the outline of our teeth. And we're just gonna, you're gonna do this for every single tooth that you think you need to have in your overlay. So you can see where this is subjective, because I'm basically just determining where my mark is going by freehand drawing it. But there are benefits to this method. There's again a lot less cleanup that you're having to do. Sometimes you're marching ants with your magic wand, and sometimes your magnetic lasso don't select what you want it to select, so you're still having to clean that up and freehand draw it anyway. So again, it just depends on which method you like to use. You'll notice here I kind of got a little crazy. No big deal. We just fixed that by coming over here to our eraser tool. And now I'm just going to erase that little whoops. And I'm going to come back over here to my pencil tool again. And now I'm going to try to draw a little bit better. So again, you would do that for each tooth that you think participated in the bite. And once you've done that, all you have to do is turn your eyeball off your block out. And lo and behold, we now have a hollow volume overlay. Just a word of caution. The reason why that you want to make sure you're working in the correct active layer. So let's say I accidentally had not selected hollow volume there, and I was accidentally in my block out, and I started to draw an outline. Well, if I come in here and I turn my eyeball off of my hollow volume, oops, that mark is not in my hollow volume. It's actually on my block out, and I don't want it on my block out. So all I have to do is edit, step back, edit, undo pencil. Now it's not on my canine anymore. And now I come over here and I make sure that I click on my hollow volume. Now I can keep drawing. And it should now be in my hollow volume. Turn my eyeball off my block out. Yep, now it's in the right layer. So don't panic if you do that. Just back up, edit, undo, edit, undo, edit, undo until you get back to before you did that. The other thing you want to be careful about is, let's say I accidentally was on my block out and I went to use my eraser tool thinking I was erasing a mark. You can see pretty instantly, oops, I'm not erasing the mark. What you're actually erasing, if I turn that eyeball off, you're actually erasing your cast, which is not something you want to do. So again, it's an easy fix, just undo eraser, and now everything's back to how you want it. So that's why you want to make sure you are working in the right layer, that the right layer is active when you're making these edits, changes, marks, erasings, things of that nature. But that's also, going back to the very, very beginning, that's also why we create a background copy, because if you accidentally worked in your block out for a very, very, very long time and just were so defeated, you thought, oh gosh, I can't back up that far to get all the way back to that. No big deal. Just start over from your background copy. And yeah, it's a little bit of work to start over, but you've still got that background copy that you haven't messed up yet. So, all right. Well, just like all the other overlays, you want to make sure that you're saving this as you go. So just file and save. And now we have a Photoshop file for Suspect H where we've got solid overlays, we have trace contour overlays, and we have hollow volume overlays. And that's kind of where we want to be. So there you have it. All right. I think that's about it for that.